Crosstown High School, we are a project-based learning school that also incorporates the 12 competencies. The two main competencies that we focus on in the science classes here at Crosstown are lead inquiry and design solutions. We also integrate other competencies such as collaborate on teams, develop self-knowledge, read critically. We also emphasize engaging as a citizen and leading one's learning. So we need to save our environment and go free. Cut down trees and go so green. Polluting the air and go green. We need to save our environment and go free. Cut down trees and go so green. All right, everyone's still coming in. All right, enough of that. Yeah. All right, y'all. Hello. So I have a question. How is it going with your model so far? Have you come up with an idea? If you haven't, if you're new to my class, have you thought of something yet that you could create? And if you are in my original class, the older class, what are you going to make for your model? What is it that what is something that you've decided that you're going to create? Can you write it in the chat box? What do you guys think? What you want to share something that they're starting to work on?
Yeah, Miss Wallace. So I don't know about, again, I'm a little skeptical on using Tinkercad. I used it in 8th grade in a class, and I'm not too fond of it. But I was I was looking at how, because I was like thinking about, okay, there's carbon dioxide in the air, and cars produce carbon dioxide, right? When they're, well, and that's the reason that the atmosphere is heating up, right? But trees and plants, they take carbon dioxide and turn it into oxygen. That's a chemical process. So I was kind of like, I wonder why this hasn't been done before, but what if the carbon dioxide produced by all these, like, in the meantime, whilst we work on getting rid of using fossil fuel as a whole, if we're going to be producing carbon dioxide, why not create a device that converts that carbon dioxide into oxygen to release into the atmosphere?
Why not?
Yeah, I mean, if we've examined the chemical process of trees and plants, it's most likely doable.
It's very doable. That is,
yeah, so
very, very doable, right?
So yeah, so I was thinking about that, like,
exactly. So one of the things that I gave out to 9th graders earlier, and like when I get a chance to get my life together and have y'all kits ready to pass out, hopefully sooner than later, and you all, that's why I was so intrigued by the kombucha kits, honestly, because when you're doing kombucha and when you're putting it into like the it's definitely doing carbon dioxide. It's actually creating CO2. But if you put into the anaerobic process, it would be actually consuming. We'll take that back. Well, let's scratch that. Scratch that. Let me rephrase. What I am intrigued about are finding ways that are really simple that we could actually generate oxygen, and maybe at the same time create ways that might even create fuel sources. Okay, so like
see, my only
two birds with one stone we might be able to do. So
sure. My only thing is that I don't want it to be an excuse where it's like, oh, now that we have devices that can create oxygen, get rid of trees. No, I think it has to be a double effort to, like, because there are plenty of organizations that are still planting trees all over the place, right? But this is this is more so what I was thinking, like a temporary solution, whereas the greater goal is to eventually, not use fossil fuels, period. But in the meantime,
right,
why not?
Well, yeah, it was a good. You're going along the right path of thinking. All right, so I'm gonna share co-host privileges with Good morning, Miss Lytle. I'm gonna share with you, and I was trying to do that when you, well, it kept moving. No, make co-host. There we go. All right. Um, so great train of thought. Now, what I'm doing right now, you guys, is I am going to share this information with another class that I won't be able to see. So you guys, hi out there that I don't get to see you all. Um, I'm sharing an overview of what we're going to do, and then I'm gonna go back in, stop the video, and then we're going to dive into more specific things about your class and your situation. Okay. And so asknature.org, you all, is a great tool. If you have not taken the time yet, how many of you, raise your hand on your screen, how many of you use the raise hand tool, have looked at asknature.org? I still see some people. All right, I see some of you have. Some of you have not yet. Some of you have, some of you have not. Okay. All right. Emit. Okay. For those of you who have not, just real quickly, I'm not going to spend a lot of time. I just want to go to the website, and this is to help others. Real fast, real quick. I can't emphasize this enough. Please go to asknature.org. Use it as a search tool. So if, for instance, we just had Dylan say, I want to create something that's going to make oxygen. So what I would type is oxygen in, see what is out there that will, so maybe some inspired ideas. And the first thing I see pop up is algae turf scrubbers. Maybe algae might be the solution to our problems. And to be honest with you, I think it just might. So um, use this website to find some ideas that you guys could create. So you've got inspired idea, you have biological strategies. You can look and see what other organisms are doing to make oxygen or to absorb carbon dioxide. Maybe you want to look at carbon dioxide and see what's out there that's going to absorb carbon dioxide. So these are things that you could do. And of course, you can hit more results and look down further. Look through the database, use it, okay? And then use that as your tool. I'm gonna go back to blowing this up a little bit. All right, so what we're gonna do today, I'm gonna give, all right, so I have heard already that some of you all are having issues using Tinkercad, and that's okay, and that's great. I'm like, I was trying to be a stickler about sticking with Tinkercad, and I understand there's issues, but my main problem is that you all, whatever you create needs to be well done. And so you guys who are just not joining my class, I mentioned to the last class that whatever project and product you come up with, I was going to enter it in
Civilization on Mars seems impossible as of now, but scientists are trying to figure out a way for humans to live on Mars. Once we get to Mars, it'll take somewhere from 40 to 100 years to create a fully functional civilization. To build a successful civilization, you're also going to need people to live in it. But it'll cost nearly $10 billion per person, and we have to get the price down 5 million%, which would be $200,000 per person. And we're currently trying to get all of that money to create technology, such as the houses we'll have to build, and places to grow the food, and spacesuits.
Can Earth support large populations of organisms? Well, the answer is yes, because the Earth already has 7.6 billion people and rising, and according to BBC News, the Earth can support up to 10 to 11 billion people. Even with that, there are still 8.7 million different species of living organisms.
So, is investigating Mars worth the investment? Going to Mars could do so many amazing things for the U.S. It could help us learn more about our planet's history, as well as put us one step closer to figuring out if there is life on other planets besides our own. The mission could give insight into endless questions that have been unanswered for centuries. However,
it's sizzling, it's hot, they say it's cold, but it's not. You wanna go to Mars, they say it's too far. You can't just drive a car, you'll be up there with the stars. It costs a lot of cash, money we don't have. You take a rocket, it might crash, we'll be gone in a flash. We live off of air, it's really not there, but we don't really care that it's more than we can bear.
Mars, it's gonna be ours. We taking food in some jars. We spin bars about Mars. Mars, it's gonna be ours.
It's too many folks, they say they wanna go, but they don't really know that we are really broke. The world is in debt, it's really a threat, but they ain't seen nothing yet, cause they got their mind set. The season's too long and it feels really wrong, and we might just be gone cause the weather is too strong.
Mars, it's gonna be ours. We taking food in some jars. We spinning bars about Mars. Mars, it's gonna be ours.
There's a frozen lake, it really isn't fake. We making rhymes like Drake, if you're reading it's too late. We melt it, make your water, bring your sons and your daughters. It ain't no bath water, cause the temp makes it hotter. They found it through a scan, it really wasn't planned with the idea. They ran and now the water's known to man.
Mars, it's gonna be ours. We taking food in some jars. We spin bars about Mars. Mars, it's gonna be ours.
Yeah!
highest point to the lowest point, like water doesn't flow uphill. So whenever you're looking at like elevation, like if you're looking at this one right here, where do you think the water's gonna flow? Yeah, and what? Exactly. So like water flows downhill and it flows where the earth kind of naturally goes with it. So elevation helps with understanding water flow, water direction, um, like how water like drains. So if you have a building at the bottom of a hill, but you don't have like a detention pond in front of it, that water's just gonna go straight to your building and then like wash out your foundation. How high up something is or how low something is from a starting point. And so why do we need to do this? As the engineering students told us, it's so important. So when you're designing like buildings or you're trying to understand water flow, you need to understand elevation and maybe there may be implications about what may be underneath something. It's not a flat surface. So that's why we're out here learning this skill. And then make sure that you have a good hold on that. He's going to pull a shot. So you're going to pull it, hold it, hold it so tight, bring it down. Where it gets to the green, where it gets to that where it's going to be. Right. And then at that 12 mark, right, you're going to take the pump and just drop it. Make sure it's perfect. So you need to turn so at that point, it has to stay together. That's where you're taking that distance. All right, well, I want to get started. Thank you again for coming. And I started off with Teach a New Way. I just think it's so fitting to like the movement of Crosstown and what we're trying to achieve here is like really diving deep into problem-based learning and really changing the narrative about how we do education in the state in the state and across the US. So excited to be here today to talk to you about this. And I'm gonna tell you a little bit about myself first. And let's see, this is my 10th going on 11th year in education. Well, actually 11 because I'm 10 plus now in education. Currently, I teach environmental science this year. I'm mostly a biology teacher, taught AP biology, and science is my life. I've been in the sciences. I can't remember when. So since I say high school, middle school, high school, it's just I fell in love with it. I also on the side, I'm the department chair. I lead the diversity, equity, inclusion work at our school. And I am also working with a group of researchers from University of Tennessee Health Science Center that is called Cancer Learning in My Backyard. And so we've been working diligently on developing that program to hopefully one day enroll students into it and really crank up that work in cancer research. Also recently won the Shell Lab Regional Award. So all of you teachers out there, definitely NSTA is a great tool, a great source of information and funding. So definitely look at their site to like look for opportunities there. And I'm a former researcher, so I've done research at St. Jude. I've done research at Georgia Tech, and now I find myself, I came back home, and so this is where I am, and I'm loving it. And so Crosstown is on a mission. Yeah. Oh, thank you, Brandy, for sharing that. Thank you. Um, all right, so I want to start off to giving you a tour of our school and what it looks like to give you a feel of what we do every day, at least the building, because I really feel like place matters. And we're going to talk a little bit about contextual teaching, but really placement of where we are matters a lot. And like whatever that room and that place we build for our students is so meaningful to the instructional component. So even though we're virtual, I try to, mirror what you see here. You're going to see the aestheticness and the openness of what we do at Crosstown. And I tried to like replicate that into the virtual environment as well. So one of the tenets also that I kind of strive by, and as a school we try to strive by is this idea of like being contextual and just really diving into making authentic experiences relevant to the student. And this can be like if you're in East Tennessee, you might be looking at different creeks and pollution along that line, or you might be thinking about fallout from radioactive materials that might be, on the other side of state, maybe near Oak Ridge or whatever it is, or like, just different like contexts and uh, whatever, wherever you are, whatever place it is that you find yourself in as an educator. And so I, being a science teacher, I really look for experiences that are that bring that science to life. And so, one of the tenets that I actually use a lot are these two quotes. One is social constructivist teaching is based on the belief that learning occurs as learners are actively involved in a process of meaning and knowledge construction rather than passively receiving information. So learners are makers of meaning and knowledge. And so just giving that student the freedom to create, the freedom to make those connections, I think is powerful as a science teacher and really bringing science to life. And another quote I really like is learning with and from people helps designers set aside their own assumptions about the world in order to gain insight into their users and their needs. And one, I really do feel like at Crosstown, we as a staff, we've learned how to set our own unique experience aside and really focus on our students. So we do, all of us bring a history and and baggage, if you may, if you will, to the table. But we really learn how to kind of separate ourselves and really hone in and focus on our students and what their needs are at that moment. And so I think that that is something powerful, and it's definitely important when you're trying to think about ways to do like anti-racist teaching and just really trying to like, make it where we all have the ability to excel in this society, in this world. All right, so one of the main tools, one of the drivers, and it's actually one of our competencies, which is design solutions, is design thinking process. Um, I'll share a link in the chat box as well. Um, so like you guys, I really feel like using design thinking is like a tool that is universal. It's free. There's tons of resources out there from the K-12 lab. Um, and I think it allows students to actually be more involved in the doing, bias towards action. That is an idea that, we're doing something, we're not just passively receiving something. And I think that makes a huge difference what's going on locally in our city. And one of the things that we in Memphis have been grappling with is our drinking water and our aquifer. And this is actually a problem that's across the country. There have been coal ash ponds that have been, buried under the ground in a lot of the watershed areas. And so now we're having problems with, heavy metals and arsenic, which is toxic, getting into the environment. So we really have been like, design a project around, how can we maybe design and solutions that would combat that problem. And so this was a project that I did last year or 2 years ago. No, I think it's 2 years. Oh man, almost 2 years ago. Wow. This is a project where we were looking at creating organisms to solve environmental problems. So basically, I started off with something of interest to them where they looked at, the biology of skin color and and intelligence. And yeah, that's a provocative topic, but you know, they were amazed. They went out and they talked to people in the community, got their opinions. They're like, oh, Miss Wallace, they're not gonna think this. They're, you know, they were amazed at the information that they gathered from the community. Just and being in the concourse, you know, I was able to take them out and go talk to people. And you know, kids come up to them and they're like, okay, we'll answer these questions. Just they were just so surprised about what people really thought. So their first checkpoint was design solutions around, you know, how do you really get out this counter narrative about intelligence and color. And then they started to do lead inquiry, where they, for our second checkpoint, where they were creating an organism that can glow in the dark and change colors. And that was intentional because I was getting them to the point where they're going to design a new organism, to maybe serve as a way to show that there's arsenic present in the water that could be a potential problem. And then they would actually create that organism through like an engineering design process, and then show what that design would look like through using this idea of synthetic biology. So like that was one of the projects we did at this school. So not going to give too much detail, but one of the project frames that we did come up with was this idea of creating this. There's a bacterium that's able to metabolize arsenic and inserting it with like a gene that glows in the dark, GFP. And so we could seed it in the water, and then we could tell and measure the fluorescent output. But that's a project. So that was where this is where we took that idea and we headed to solving that problem. Still a work in progress because I got kids this year who are kind of building that out more. And so this also, our students are working in my class in environmental science this year, designing a sustainable Memphis. How can we redesign, recreate our backyards? And so we've gone out, we've used iNaturalist to really survey the biodiversity there. I had students learn how to use Tinkercad, which is free, for you to actually go out and really create a three-dimensional model of what that new improved neighborhood would look like through nature-based solutions and this idea of biomimicry. So there were just various checkpoints within our project that led to like rethinking and what could be the future. What are carbon footprints? What could we do to offset that carbon? What is a carbon sink? And like really, how can we redesign our world that we're living in every day to make it better? And one resource, if you're not familiar with it, is citizen science. And you may already know about that, but citizen science has been an eye-opener for me as an educator. It's free. I mean, you can actually literally contribute to the scientific community without putting a lot of money and investment into the work we're doing. So it's a cool, you can just Google citizen science. I mean, beautiful tool. There's also, if I put it in the chat, it's called SciStarter, www.scistarter.org. SciStarter gives you, it's like a data